Hello everyone, it is Abba of the Black Book Space, and I'm here today talking about my all-time favorite book of 2022. This book just happens to be the last one that I finished on the last day of the year, but that's not why it's my favorite. This book is called Rest is Resistance. So if you are a person that is constantly on the go, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're going here, you're going there, everyone's asking you for things, you never feel like you have a moment to yourself to rest, I highly recommend this book. This is called Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto, and it's by Tricia Hersey. So you may have heard of the Nap Ministry. That is this woman's work. This book is amazing. So I am a very big proponent of the law of attraction. I've been studying for a little while. I follow all the gurus and things on YouTube and everywhere else learning about the law of attraction. But something that I do not hear a lot about is how to use the law of attraction, how to use that mental power and all of these things, that positive energy, to put an end to things like racism. So that's something that just kind of like came to my mind at the end of the year last year. It's come up before, but it's a lot more prevalent at the end of the year. And I was just like, why isn't anyone talking about it? So that question in my mind obviously manifested this book into my life, pulled it in. So this book is separated into several different chapters, about 4 of them. And the first one is called Rest. Part 1 is called Rest. So many people think that when we're talking about rest, we're talking about taking a nap, we're talking about just laying around, which is very important. This book is talking about using rest as a tool against oppression. So the oppression being the 9 to 5, where you're constantly working, you're constantly grinding, you're constantly going somewhere rather than being at your destination. This book really talks about how you can incorporate rest into your life in very easy ways. And not just how you can, but why you should, right? Because I feel like a lot of times once we determine the why, we'll determine how we're going to do it. So something that stood out to me in here, there were so many really, really great gems, but I want to pick out one for sure. I wish you a deep knowing that exhaustion is not a normal way of living. How many of us are suffering from things like high blood pressure, just general irritation because we do not get enough rest? Rest to me simply means sitting, and it's that feeling like you're sighing, like, oh my goodness, I'm finally home. A lot of times we think of rest as the weekend. So once you get to the weekend, you can finally rest. According to this book, rest should be incorporated throughout your life. It's not normal, as it says here, for us to be exhausted, for us to be constantly going, and doing. Right? I read something the other day that said we are human beings, not human doings, right? So existing is a part of rest. Existing in your beautiful, capable form, however you got here, you're existing in that form, right? A portal opens when we slow down. This is so very true. I teach special education. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I find that I am constantly on someone's deadline, right? Because I write IEPs, and they are very important legal documents. They have to be written in a certain amount of time. They have to be implemented in a certain amount of time. So I found myself constantly going, getting these done. When I take my time and I write down exactly what I have to do and get it done in a certain amount of time that's on my time, I feel a lot better when I started things out earlier. That's what rest is about too. Rest is about taking your time, being in the moment. However, one thing that also stood out, she says, is that rest is not about taking a nap so that you can go do more things. Resting is simply about resting. It's simply about existing. It's simply about being in that moment where you were just existing. So these are the tenets of the Nap Ministry. Rest is a form of resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy. Our bodies are a site of liberation, right? That freedom. Naps provide a portal to imagine, invent, and heal. Our dream space has been stolen. This is the 4th one. Our dream space has been stolen, and we want it back. We will reclaim it via rest. So what stood out to me here was the idea that when you're resting, napping, meditating, taking a pause, however you want to describe it, you are battling against a system that tells you to do otherwise. And that in and of itself is resistance. That's the revolution, right? It's not about, constantly doing things. It really is about resting, because in that rest, you come up with answers that you've been looking for. And that to me is where the law of attraction side comes in, because many people teach putting subliminals on at night and maybe writing down a question at night or asking the universe for the answer at night. That really brings in the answers that you need. That's where that rest comes in. And that's what she's talking about here. It'll provide you with the answer that you need for whatever else you're doing, such as, how can I have a kind, peaceful day every day despite the microaggressions that I'm experiencing? You may come up with the idea during your rest. Your ancestors may give you this idea. Well, it's time to let that job go. It is time to come up with your own business concept, or it's time to run your own business full time. Those types of things come to you, what people call downloads, when you are rested, when you are convening, talking to the ancestors, right? So it gets a little deep. I wasn't expecting for this book to be this deep, but I'm so excited that it was. I feel that it truly changed my life, because right now I am, thankfully, loving this time on break from school or from teaching for a little while, right? We get our little winter break hiatus. And reading this book during this time gave me ideas of things that I can implement when I go back into the classroom, right? I'm not necessarily saying, well, I have to rest more so I'll be more productive there. But I am saying that reading this book during this time made me make the most of this time that I was off, right? Because I decided, rather than constantly doing things, this day I'm going to rest. And I was able to define what rest meant for me. So, really beautiful things in this book. She says here, if we are not tapped into the truth of our divinity, there's the possibility of continued brainwashing. I am all about disrupting the system, in the sense of, right, we think of books like 1984 that kind of talks about how we were all little machines. That's what this book talks about, how we're being brainwashed into working a certain way, constantly working, not with our families. We're not giving our children the principles that we'd like to give them, maybe given by someone else. We don't have the time to rest like we need to, which helps us to be in optimal health and helps us also to make connections with other people, because those connections with other people may lead to other revolutions or people coming up with ideas that kind of disrupt the system. I know it's getting deep. I know. I warned you that this was a deep book. This is one of those books that is perfect, I think, for a book club. Because it has so many things in it to discuss. The biggest question is, how will you implement more rest in your life? How do you define rest for you? So I want you to tell me in the comments below those two things. How can you implement more rest in your life? Number one. Number two, what exactly does rest mean to you? Does it mean setting of the alarm for like 20 minutes, meditating in the morning? Does it mean pausing when you get to where you are and meditating? I highly recommend that. It really helps that a lot. Does it mean listening to different types of music, giving your mind a rest from the other types of music that may be increasing that sympathetic side? Does it mean reading more books like these, resting from other types of books that may be a little, not as productive or not as positive? What does rest mean to you? I would say, for me, it means doing more things that bring me joy. So that includes taking other dance classes from other people. I've been doing that a lot. It means sleeping in when I can. It also means meditating more. So being more intentional with my meditations, right? Not just meditating for the sake of meditating, not just sleeping for the sake of sleeping, which is very important, but being very intentional with my time, what I do with my time. So one of those ways that I plan to be more intentional is to get with more people in this year and talk about books. So I want to talk about the Epic Book Chat. We are going to be reading the book 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, an amazing book, an amazing Black author. We'll be talking about her book. How am I implementing rest into this? Well, I'm getting together with people We're talking about how this book made us feel. It's resting. We're not going to be working. We're not going to be getting together for the sake of doing more work. And we're reading the book for entertainment, which to me is a form of rest, right? You're relaxing a little bit. You're letting your mind kind of chill out, getting that parasympathetic mode, lying down while you're reading maybe, which is something else that she recommends that you do with this book. So that is one way I plan to incorporate more rest. Getting together with more like-minded people this year and just vibing. I feel like vibing is just really important. And it opens up a conversation for so many different things. So if you're looking for this book or any other books, I highly recommend you hop on the link below, because that will take you to my bookshop where you can look for other books, amazing books, that some that I recommend, some that I have not yet read, that I plan to read. And this book, highly recommended. Rest is Resistance. It's a manifesto by Tricia Hersey. Because it really opened my mind to the parts that we play in this system, in this society. So this book is split into 4 parts. I did not talk about that. The first is rest. Part 1 is rest. Part 2, the dream. Part 3 is resist. Like, how is resting considered resistance? And part 4, imagine, which is really important. Imaginations are so huge. Everything we have came from someone's imagination, right? So why can't you be the one to change the world with yours? So again, read this book, check it out, look in the comments below, join us in the Epic Book Chat. It is a hybrid situation going on, right? Because we're going to be in person. If you're here in Phoenix, you're welcome to come. If you're somewhere else, feel free to join us online. It is going to be an amazing time, catered event. We're going to do more than just talk about this book. So I highly recommend you come out and join us. Have a great day. Do something that brings you joy.